Seasoner
and Co.
Welcome to Second-Hand Haunting, where we read the second half of a second-hand story from a second-hand book I found in a second-hand shop and try and make sense of it.
Fun of it.
Sense of it?
Fun of it.
Sense of it?
Fun of it. So you've been waiting forever to do that, haven't you?
Hey, Ollie.
Hey, Callum.
Are you ready to dive right into the second half of this poor, unfortunate woman who's had every house haunted ever in her life?
Well, the water's warm and I'm ready to dip in my toes.
Let's do it. So just to recap from last episode, if you didn't listen, and you should listen, Dorothy Emerson wrote in to John Seymour and Harry Neligan explaining all of the troublesome ghosts she's had in her life.
We call her Dotty.
We sure do. The third house I lived in was noted for its ghosts. The townspeople would not enter its ground after nightfall. Not even, I do believe, if you offered them money to do so. And I bet they tried. To recap, this family is rich as hell.
Give you a shilling.
Yeah.
Tuppence? Honestly, I do not know how the British monetary system works.
Don't worry.
Tuppence is not much, right?
They don't know either.
Because they've got so much money. And some people, they don't even have to pay.
Hey! We ourselves never noticed anything in the grounds, though we knew persons who had. Many people think that a house has to be exceedingly old to be haunted, but in this case, that theory certainly did not hold good. First of all, this house was built about 70 years ago, and the builders of it died within the last 26 years. The builders, I guess, meaning the family that built it, not the actual workmen.
Well, we have talked about this in previous episodes. I strongly believe in a boundary area. So there's actually a TV series called Ghosts, which is a comedy, but it explains this concept very well. Okay. So in the series, I have a range of different ghosts from different time periods, one of which is a caveman, and who is still around, caveman in a way. And there is like some sort of like boundary that whenever they try and leave, they get pushed back into.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter, about the house. It's about the area.
Yeah. It's about the very strange specific geofence that ghosts are adhering to.
So that would mean if there was an apartment building, in theory, it could go between the different floors. Although, to be fair, I don't think that happened in the actual Ghost TV series. I think the confines of the area seemed almost arbitrary.
A lot of this is arbitrary.
Did seem rather arbitrary. However, I will digress. Boundaries.
Boundaries.
One word.
Ghosts don't have them in some ways and really do have them in others.
So true. The boundary tends to be the area in which they reside, but not tied to a time period. So they should be able to be cave people.
Yeah.
Ghosts.
Why don't we see cave people ghosts? Maybe that spooky, angry, floating face was a caveman from last episode.
Could be.
I'm not going to explain anymore. You got to go listen to it, listener. What are you doing part two, you maniac?
I am just, sick of thinking that ghosts could only be from a day ago. I want to meet a ghost from 100,000 years ago.
100,000 years? Yeah,
that has
might
been
still be
able
human.
to be,
sure.
That has been observing humanity for all that time and picked up English during.
Not just unga-bungering away.
That's exactly right. They might have some outdated ideas though.
Yeah, I expect so.
Okay, that joke didn't land the way I wanted it to. That's fine.
Oh. Yeah, I got nothing. They, the builders of the house, had been a rich, childless couple, absolutely devoted to the house and garden, so much so that I heard that they said that they would never leave it after death. Okay, so they called it before they died. We built this house, we're never leaving it. When we die, we're turning into ghosts. It's like lich activity, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be. It's definitely it's definitely some dark magic.
Yeah. Yeah, money. Several people declared that they had met them walking round the paths, just as they used to in life. However, as I said, we never saw anything in the grounds. But the most weird things went on in the house. Besides the old couple, or rather the woman, as he was never seen, a drowned child had once been brought into the house. There was a stream in the garden, which was very rapid when in flood, and this small child had been swept down and had been taken into the house and had died there.
That would have been a hell of a night.
Yeah. The child must have also haunted it, as the patter of tiny feet was constantly heard.
Tiny little wet feet.
Yeah. You don't just think they had a cat, do you?
I was focused on the creepy, drenched ghost of a child wandering the halls of a large house.
Of a childless couple.
And you went straight to a cat.
Yeah. Hey, I'm trying to make sense of this.
It's true.
Front of this sense. One Sunday evening, I was sitting alone in the drawing room with a big Irish terrier and a black cat. It's a cat.
Called
Just a cat.
Okay, it's a cat. It's fine. It's cat. Although, actually, you know what?
Could be the dog.
Speaking as a cat owner,
Yeah.
you never hear cats. I've never heard a cat walking around in my life.
You rarely hear a cat.
Okay.
But sometimes when they get those zoomies going, you suddenly hear the right? But it's only sometimes.
Yeah, that's fast though. It's not like it's not like a little pitter patter. Was that like sprinting around the house?
It just says the patter of tiny feet, I guess.
I swear she could outrun anything. She's like a bullet. She's like,
Man.
but yeah. Anyway, so more likely a dog. How's that?
Probably the dog, yeah.
Probably the dog.
Hang on, Irish Terrier. So I don't know how big's an Irish Terrier. I should look this up.
20 feet tall. I don't know.
No.
Probably more like 20 centimeters tall.
Oh, okay. It's a medium-sized dog. Yeah. All right. Sure. Yeah, this is pretty cute, actually. A terrier, spaniel kind of looking thing.
Sure. Look, could have been the dog,
Yeah, I think it was probably the dog.
or the child ghost of a family that had no. No, actually, you tell about it. It was like the child of. Oh, I'm lost.
The childless couple were haunted by a dead child ghost. How ironic.
Oh, because they were childless.
Yes.
So they hadn't lost a child.
No, that was. I think it was just a child from the village who
okay.
got washed down a stream and then rescued on the grounds, taken into the house and died.
So the ghost of a small child wandering the halls, endlessly
Riding the dog.
endlessly looking for their parents while drenched in water and feeling the cold embrace of the winter air.
Yeah. You should be a poet or something. Or at least write some stories for this.
If I was a poet, I'd be Edgar Allan Poe. It's a rap tapping at my chamber door. Nevermore!
I can't make a version of that with a child. I'm not going to try.
Nor should you.
No. There had been several people in to supper, but at that moment the men were all in the smoking room and the women upstairs.
By the way, just so you know, we've added a room, a smoking room.
Yes.
Also,
from last episode, they had a breakfast room,
breakfast room,
a kitchen. They have a smoking room, an upstairs room. I don't think this is the house with the stairs and the ottoman. That was 2 houses ago.
My stepdad liked to smoke. He liked to smoke so much. He definitely didn't have a smoking room because the whole house was a smoking room. And he also had an ashtray in the toilet. So
No.
yeah, he had an ashtray in the toilet.
No.
Yeah, apparently, if he felt the need to have a cigarette in the bathroom, like if that was just too long to wait, he could.
Oh
Yeah.
no! Oh, I guess okay. Theoretically, if you're halfway through a cigarette and the urge comes over you,
Well, he's not putting that out. Apparently,
yeah.
you get desensitized to it pretty quickly. I'll tell you.
I'm not a smoker. I don't have a smoking room, but my God, I would love to have a smoking jacket.
Oh yeah,
Right?
those red ones, like the red.
Yeah, tie up with a cord around the middle.
So great.
Yeah, look good with a fez.
A fez.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't feel like a fez would be comfy. It doesn't give me a comfy vibe.
No, they're pretty comfy.
They're pretty comfy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I could hear them talking faintly, but otherwise everything was very silent. By and by, I heard a faint noise in the hall, which was tiled. The noise of footsteps. A child's footsteps. They made that slight pattering noise that one always associates with those flat black shoes children used to wear with a strap round the ankle. That's vivid.
Oh, it conjures up a vision for sure.
Yeah. I can still see that being a dog's paw, but... You know.
Do you know, it wasn't that long ago, I think in the 1800s, that they didn't actually dress children differently for their sexes.
Gender-wise?
Yeah,
Yes.
gender-wise. So up until like, oh God, I wouldn't know the age, but...
Probably until the early 1900s, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm not sure when they would start changing the way they dress in terms of their age, but...
Oh, I see.
But I'd say, I'm going to speculate here, and this is going to be a broad speculation with no historical accuracy whatsoever. But in my mind, it'd be like up until like 12 or something.
I think it's probably somewhere between 12 and 16.
12 and 16, yeah. But they...
Yeah, boys wear dresses, whatever.
Yeah, it was like everyone had the same clothes, which probably made it a lot easier because it would be like more interchangeable, you know? You've got a child of any gender and you can hand down clothes to like the other kids.
Yeah.
Again,
when you've got 12 kids, it's practicality you're concerned with, right?
Absolutely. You just have to maybe like make some slight adjustments like here and there. You could probably hem that out yourself, you know? So...
No. You get the servants to do it.
Oh, sure. No, but I think it's interesting anyway that separating the genders of children was a relatively recent thing.
Yeah. Then afterwards, for a while, it was pink for boys, blue for girls.
Yeah.
Pink was like red, and red is masculine.
Honestly, if you were to go back, I don't know, even like 200 years, pink used to be a really masculine color.
Yeah.
Pink is closer to red is closer to blood, violence, that type of thing. And it was actually turned into a feminine color because that was what worked best for the marketing departments that were selling the products, which is, you know, something that is very similar to a lot of the things that we have around today. Like with Santa, used to be blue or like whatever color.
Yeah.
And now because of Coca-Cola is red.
Yep. I want to say that there's a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, hyper-masculine American president, where he fondly remembers wearing a pink dress in his childhood, and that sounds absurd today, but back then it was like, yeah, of course a child, Teddy Roosevelt, wore a pink dress.
Incredibly common. One of the things I think is really interesting about human history is that we only see what we see around us in the time that we're in, right? So if you don't have someone telling you all these historic facts or you're not doing the research yourself, you just simply don't know.
Yeah. And when you hear one little bit, you look at it and laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can put my conspiracy hat on for a second and say that it feels like a lot of those like corporations don't want you to necessarily know about all the ways that they've manipulated the society around you.
Yeah.
You know? And
it's in their best interest that we don't know.
Exactly. So I think it's good to talk about these things and talk about how everything has changed, but also to highlight how ridiculous some prejudices can be as well. Because if you look into history, these ideals that you hold true are not even very old, you know? No. This is an idea or a fact that you would go to the hill on, but is only like a 50-year-old concept. You know, in the span of human history, this makes no sense.
Yep. Your grandfather would have thought it was totally different.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah. I need to also throw out the baby with the bathwater. Which is, sorry...
from last episode.
It was from last episode.
It's a callback.
Yeah,
go listen. Listener.
I fear I was familiar with the episode and I forgot that I hadn't already explained the concept.
I don't think we need to be opaque about the fact that we record two of these on the one evening. It's fine.
I was trying so hard to be. Anyway.
Up and down, they went ceaselessly, the pitter-patter of footprints. I listened, and suddenly I discovered that the animals were listening also.
The animals in the dark.
In the drawing room. Or
the
bedroom.
Dark drawing room.
Or wherever.
The dark bedroom or drawing room and or kitchen.
The cat in a mildly interested way. The dog with all his bristles up. Okay, maybe the pitter-patter is not the cat or the dog. Maybe it's a rat. He appeared terribly frightened.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
That actually makes more sense to me. I've heard rats.
Yeah.
I've heard rats in roofs. I've heard rats scurry around. I'd argue that it would be a lot easier to hear a rat than it would be a cat.
Yeah. Do you think it would sound a little bit like children's footsteps?
No.
Okay. So I went out into the hall to see what it could be. There was nothing there. And the instant I went out, the footsteps ceased. I waited for a few moments and then went back to my chair, which faced the door. The instant I sat down, the noise recommenced. Up and down the tiny footsteps went, and the dog quivered and shook. So I went out again, this time hurriedly, but it was no use. Again I saw nothing.
Can I add some poetic license here?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, this ghostly child haunts me again, but if only I could have children of my own.
Yeah. Well, that's the other old couple who may or may not also be haunting the house, whereas this is coming from, I think, a 16-year-old girl.
Okay.
Which, look, she may want kids.
I find it so hard to keep up sometimes.
Yeah.
That's my fault. My bad.
This is Dotty, who is writing in about her childhood experiences.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Dotty, 16.
Yeah.
She's not interested in having kids yet. She's out there playing.
Maybe. I don't know. 16-year-olds in school these days, they would have those fake babies to carry around or whatever.
It's the 1800s. She's probably an old maid. Feel free to scrap that.
Yep. The animals, meanwhile, watched the door, and by the way they moved their heads, I could see they saw something. I walked in and out several times, and finally the noise ceased when the rest of the party came into the room. A short time after this, one of the maids, Ellen, told me the story of the drowned child, which I had not known before. When I told her what I had heard, she told me that she too had often heard the footsteps. Still think it's an animal, but...
But they both heard footsteps.
No kidding.
And they couldn't have had the same animal.
The house is too huge. How could it be the same animal?
I mean, I guess they could have a pack of rats.
Yeah. Or a possum, or... I don't know what. I don't know much about the native fauna of Ireland, to be honest.
Two things. One,
Squirrel?
love the story. Secondly, I'm with her. You know what? I'm calling it. Drowned child running through the house.
Yeah, all right.
Eternally haunting the house. That is my standpoint. I'm digging in my heels. This is the hill I'm gonna die on. This is a dead child.
I like it. Narratively, I like it. For the first few years we lived there, I was away most of the time at school. And as I was only at home for short intervals, I never heard anything. The first I heard of the ghosts was one day when my cousin Elizabeth, before mentioned, last episode, asked me whether I had ever seen anything in the room I slept in. On telling her no, she told me that one night she woke up to see a woman in black standing beside the bed.
Oh, did she follow her from the last house?
Yeah, it seems it, doesn't it? Very familiar so far.
Maybe she is her guardian angel.
Oh,
dressed in black.
That's a nice thought. Thinking that it was my mother and that someone must be ill, she sat up and asked, "Is there anything wrong?" Receiving no reply, she struck a match and was very astonished to find nobody there and the door tightly closed. The ghost was a tall woman, very stately and dressed in stiff black rustling silk. Does silk rustle?
I'm not sure if it can be stiff and rustling.
No.
It's an interesting image to conjure.
I thought the whole point of silk was that it was very soft and smooth and sleek.
I remember being a teenager and I wanted silk sheets for my bed.
Uh-huh.
But we weren't that wealthy, so I was able to
satin?
Yeah, I was able to get satin sheets. So I got satin sheets for my bed, and it was not great.
No, no, they're the pits, aren't they?
Oh, it's the worst. It was worse.
They don't breathe at all.
No. That idea did not last long. It slides. It feels weird and uncomfortable. I don't even know how it's a product, to be honest.
No, because people want silk sheets and satin as the knockoff version of it, basically. Yeah. On inquiry, we found that the late lady of the house answered exactly to this description. My mother saw her too, or rather saw and heard her skirts. Oh, is this going to be the next sound around the house? A bunch of skirts?
Floating skirts?
Yeah, and they're silk. They don't even make noise. Oh, whatever. You know what? Moving on.
That being said, if I was chilling out on the couch and there was a couple of floating skirts going by, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
It'd break up the day.
Yeah. It would make your night. She was standing on the landing and heard a faint rustling. She looked up to see black skirts whisking round the corner onto the next landing. How many stories does this house have? It must be at least 3 then.
5.
No. Oh, possibly basement, middle, upper.
Oh, look, I was merely speculating.
5. Yeah, okay.
Speculating. But, it is certainly a stately manor.
Sure is.
And I would arguably say that it would have a dumbwaiter.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, a throwback from our last episode, we were talking about dumbwaiters, but We've never been privy to a dumbwaiter being installed in this building, but
but there's definitely one, right?
Have to be.
It's gotta be.
Have to be. It was such a thing of the time.
If you have a breakfast room and a smoking room, you have a dumbwaiter.
Yeah, I wonder how chimneys would work in a place like that. Like, do you think there'd be like one chimney that would go all the way through the house, and then like you have like, oh no, that can't work because, or does it?
They're in each room and they combine at the top.
Yeah, so like, they all
There's
go up.
lots of different ways you could do chimneys, and it's not secondhand architecture. we could do a deep dive into chimneys.
Okay,
Much like Santa. One Saturday morning in the summer, one of the maids, Maggie, how many maids have they got? Bloody hell. Was brushing down the stairs, and chancing to look up, she saw a very tall woman, dressed in black, coming out of my room and standing near the door. Not realising for a moment that it was anything out of the common, she looked down again, and then glanced up to behold the lady moving off to the next landing. And again the black skirts whirled round the corner. So she ran downstairs to find all the womenkind out, except Mother, who had not been upstairs for a couple of hours. Yeah, everyone's just seeing these black skirts disappearing around corners.
Oh, I get it. You're seeing the flap of a black skirt like going around a corner.
Yes.
Right. Clearly attached to a person.
Yeah, it's not like a parade of skirts individually
That's how it
floating
was in
down the
my
corridor.
mind.
I know, when you mentioned being on the couch, I'm like, he thinks this is like Sorcerer's Apprentice or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I mean,
I'm not going to disabuse you of that, it's fun.
Yeah, it's like a Disney Fantasia when you have all the clothes like flying around. They do like it does like the dishes and.
Oh wait, no, hang on, that's copyright Disney.
So true.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's more like a black skirt.
Yeah, like whoosh,
running
around the corner. Yeah, you go.
What?
This was a frightfully noisy house, especially at night time. Though a great many things happened in the daytime. Many a night I have waked up about 1 a.m. to hear someone run violently down the back stairs. All night long there would be banging and rustling and noises of all descriptions, with frequent knockings on the doors. I mean, with this many people in the house, you've got to expect some noise happening, right?
Mm.
You would certainly expect some banging and rustling and knockings. Sorry.
What are you apologising for?
For intimating that the servants are all having a bit of rumpy-pumpy behind closed doors.
Don't be sorry about that. They deserve that.
They do. They
deserve a bit of rumpy-pumpy.
Sometimes for weeks together we would hear nothing. And then they would recommence. September, we noticed, was the worst month. What happens in September?
Orgies.
I was thinking weather-wise, but yeah, pretty much.
Now keep that in.
Your wish is my command.
That's what... nothing.
There were, of course, people who poo-pooed it all and said the noises were caused by natural agents, rats and mice, etc. Unfortunately for this theory, we had no rats, very few mice, and the cat and dog slept out, not to mention the fact that very often everyone in the house got up to investigate.
Look, I'm certainly one to do that as well. And I think I talked about this before, about hearing a noise in the night and getting up. But I don't know how many times...
Everyone in the house?
I mean, no, it's true. It's just me. It's just me. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's always just me. No one else cares. It's just me.
Yeah.
And it's usually me sneaking out to the kitchen, maybe grabbing a kitchen knife, thinking that that's what will save me if I encounter a burglar.
Whereas I think we've discovered previously that just turning on a light is enough to scare most of them away.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I mean, one would hope.
Can't just turn on a light in 1800s Ireland, though, in a big mansion.
Not without a match.
Yeah, exactly.
And some oil and a lantern and...
Yeah, it's a whole palaver.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's like a whole thing. I always think there's something incredibly romantic about that idea. And I think
it's taking 2 minutes to turn a light on.
Totally. And I always think to live in that era In my mind, there's so many romantic notions that like come to the forefront of my mind. And with all the books that I've read about like people's experiences, TV shows,
None of them mentioned the toilet situation.
No, that's the thing. They always paint this really romantic portrait. However, like it was a tough time. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a guy that did this historic YouTube series where he talked about if you were to go back to this age, like what should you bring with you? And it was usually vaccination shots.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, maybe like a typhoid shot. Like it was a brutal, unforgiving landscape of disease and atrocity.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how much money you have, nature can still just fuck you.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why you gotta have 12 children.
You can't pay off the Black Plague.
No. Nope. I mean, you can buy a bunch of provisions and wall yourself off and make sure you don't go anywhere near anyone who's sick.
Yeah.
But then who changes the bed sheets?
It's true. They say that during the Black Plague, some people used to try and keep themselves in confined spaces with large fires. You know,
yes.
Because
they thought it was the miasma effect, that it was odors causing disease, right?
Yeah. And it was potentially like warding off bad spirits or something as well. The funny thing was that it did actually work. And there was some method to their incredible madness. So, they basically lucked out.
Okay.
But the reason why it did work was because that environment did ward off fleas. And fleas were the carriers of the Black Plague. So they didn't know that.
Yep.
You know, they weren't looking to ward off fleas, but they ended up staying safer in those environments. So it did actually work, but not for the reasons that they thought it would.
No. Oh, good on them. They tried a thing. They were using maybe science?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm not sure if that works with that theory of correlation and causation. And I don't know. You know what?
I think we're veering into secondhand science today. But,
secondhand architecture, secondhand science. Whatever I can palm off.
We've got a whole network ready, Ollie. Where were we? One night, we were sure a window had fallen down. But when we went to search, they were all closed and bolted. Another night, we thought every bit of china in the house was broken, as there was such a crashing from the direction of the pantries. "Oh, goodness," I said, sitting up in bed. "The cat must have got in. There'll be murder in the morning." But the morning brought no broken china on the floor, nor broken anything else. And the cat was found outside as usual. So they just heard a bunch of smashing of plates, and nothing was there.
It happens.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to be clear, they heard smashing plates.
Yep.
No plates were smashed?
Correct. They heard from the kitchen, crash, crash, smash, crash.
Right.
Then they got up in the morning and nothing was broken.
Right, that was my mistake. When I said it happens, I was thinking, plate smashing, it happens. Not like,
Yes, yeah. But this wasn't
hear,
even smashing.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's ever happened to me where I've heard all the plates in my kitchen smash and then walked out and nothing has been actually smashed.
Yeah,
I must admit, Callum, if that happened here, you would think that was weird.
I would think it was weird, yes. Yeah. Yes.
So
I don't think the tap incident wasn't weird.
Any poltergeist in the house, I conjure you now. Create a smashing noise of plates in the kitchen. But wait.
Shame.
Not this time.
There's a whole chapter of this book about poltergeists as well, which is basically disembodied things. And it's a whole chapter of people just saying, I just keep hearing knockings and the sound of everything in my kitchen smashing and then getting up in the morning and everything's fine.
Okay.
So that's a thing, apparently.
I feel
a whole bunch of people are hearing their plates smashing and they're not.
To be honest, I feel like to be a true poltergeist, you have to smash the plates.
Right? I guess if you do actually smash the plates, you run the risk of being exorcised. So you just make the sound of it, but don't actually smash anything, and people might tolerate you.
It's a real shame that the listeners couldn't have seen your hand motions there, because it was such a great depiction of the innocent ghost getting away with smashing the plates.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. You don't need to exercise me. I'm just having a little bit of fun. No damage here.
We brought up the toilet situation earlier. But the next line, the bathroom was over the kitchen. Although, you know what? bathroom may not have had a toilet in it back then. It might have been literally just a bath.
Hey, go on. Let's see where we go with this.
Yeah, let's go. And the floor between was composed of single boards. Therefore, every word that was said in the kitchen could be heard distinctly in the bathroom. And presumably the other way around, right?
But they know that, right? Like
Yeah.
that would only not be apparent to guess.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming you wouldn't you wouldn't go into the bathroom and start randomly bad-mouthing people.
The cooks who are downstairs.
Yeah.
Listening.
You wouldn't well, I mean, I feel like bathrooms generally a solo affair, although no, that's not true at all, is it? Because if it had a bath...
Yep.
I
Like
mean,
you were saying, the whole family would bathe in the same bath.
It's true. And you know what? It comes down to how we view bodies, how we actually, you know what? There's a long road there, and I'm going to stop there.
Fair
But
enough.
I feel like I could do so much airtime with that.
Okay, we can do another podcast. Secondhand bathwater.
Anyway, I'm imagining a scene where a mother is washing their child in a bathtub or having conversations about what they're doing. But I feel
it's too hot. No, it's fine. Get in.
So I feel like they would be aware of that.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Okay.
I think we'll see. One morning, I was in my bath when I distinctly heard the maids go out. One to brush out the hall, the other to do some room. I don't know what that sentence means. I assume it's just going out to
That's what they used to
set
call
the
coke.
rooms.
Just got to do some lines of room.
They had hardly gone out when I was startled to hear the unmistakable sound of a chair drawn across the tiled floor. Scrambling into a dressing gown, I rushed out on the landing just as the two maids, Maggie and Ellen, dashed in from the hall. Leaning over the banisters of the back stairs, I called out, "Did either of you move a chair?" At the same moment, they asked each other the same question. I ran downstairs to find them having a consultation over a chair that was standing out in the middle of the floor, which they had left against the wall only 2 or 3 minutes before.
So a whole chair moved.
Whole chair moved and nobody moved it. Whoa.
Call the police.
Yep. Call the vicar.
We have a chair that's moved. Call for the
What?
exorcism. Banish these chair-moving spirits from this house.
No, I have to say that the next bit that I'm going to say is quoted from the book. I'm not editorializing.
Sure.
What moved that chair? Certainly no human agency.
Get the poltergeist remover. Vicar.
Does the phone exist yet?
Who does exorcism? It's just preachers, not preachers.
Yeah, the local priest usually.
Priest.
Someone
Priest.
from the clergy.
Priest is the word I was looking for. We were talking about vicars and clergy, and I was thinking priest.
We've managed to avoid a lot of it, but I've had to look up so many different words in this book. I'm like, what is that? And every time it's just a priest.
Yeah,
There's 12 different words for just priest.
That being said, though, different words can conjure up different visions. When I think of the word vicar, the thing that conjures up into my mind is
the
the
Vicar of
Dibley. Yes, not one to be by someone's bed. Satan be gone.
No.
More like trying to deal with the village gossip of the day. So I think the priest seems like such a more ominous character to me than a vicar.
Yet we all three heard the scraping of it, and the chair itself had left its ordinary position. The animals were upstairs with my mother, and no mouse could have done such a thing unless it was the size of an elephant. Or like a medium dog.
I was going to say,
It doesn't need to be that big.
not to move a chair.
One summer, Mrs. H. from Dublin came to stay with us. She was greatly interested in anything occult, but at the same time was not in the least afraid. The month was June, and the weather glorious. Mrs. H. woke up one morning to hear a great noise and rustling on the stairs. Sounds which she took to be Maggie at her work and wearing a stiff apron. I'm hearing some telltale indicators that this might be the stiff black skirts again.
Ooh, I got nothing.
It would be weird to introduce something new haunting the house at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look.
We'll see. It's over the page.
Turn the page.
Thinking that it was only about 8 o'clock, she turned round again and went to sleep. When she woke up the second time, she discovered it was only about 4 o'clock, so that it must have been much earlier when she was awake before. Is that important?
Not sure. I will say one thing, though. When we were talking before about the black skirt that was disappearing around the corner, I feel like that would be such a great visualization in like a movie or a TV show.
Yeah.
Just that little shot of like that little bit of skirt that was like floating around the corner, because it would be like, did it happen? Was it in the corner of my eye? And you could say to somebody else, like, I saw this, and they'd be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the audience sees it.
The audience,
we're like, oh, yeah, it is real.
It is real. But then it's hard for them to explain.
Yeah. I got to say that Miss Dorothy Emerson, Dotty, as we've been calling her, certainly has an eye for good visuals and stuff for her many, many unfortunate encounters with spooky things. At breakfast, she related the whole story and afterwards told it to Maggie, who astonished her by saying that she too had heard the noises. So it wasn't Maggie! Indeed, she had waked Ellen up and remarked that the fairies were coming for them for sure.
Oh, fairies.
Yeah, the first mention we've got so far, but pervades the book.
A ghost fairies or a fairies ghost?
Well, it's a whole bunch of magical stuff in Irish oral tradition, right? The fairies are certainly some of them. We will sometimes hear them referred to as the good people, because you do not want to insult a fairy.
No.
They will fuck with you.
They become
real
bad people.
Yeah. They will start haunting you or turn you into a ghost.
Because they'll kill you.
Yes, and make you never rest for the rest of your eternal life or whatever. Like, they're nasty, nasty buggers.
Don't fuck with the fae.
Don't fuck with the fae. There's the t-shirt for today. So yeah, I think it's reasonable that the servants are actually afraid that fairies might be coming for them. That's not a fun thing for anyone.
I wonder what they did.
Yeah. Footsteps had apparently gone by her door. That evening, Mrs. H was upstairs dressing for dinner. The rest of us were in the breakfast room. Oh, fucking breakfast room.
Why does the breakfast room bother you so much?
I don't know.
They've got a smoking room. They've got like a 5-story house. But there is something that just seems to upset you about the fact that they take breakfast in a breakfast room.
More and more, I think it's annoying me the fact that I think it is just the dining room, because they seem to eat all of their meals every time of the day in the breakfast room.
Okay. So
and yet they're not calling it a dining room, they're calling it a breakfast room, which is a very specific thing.
So your issue is it's mislabeled?
Yes. Yes, I think so.
Okay.
By and by, she came out of her room and started to descend the stairs. Somebody motioned to me to pull forward a comfortable chair, which I did. The footsteps came as far as the hall and then ceased. Why? What's she doing? I said, and I looked out. There was no one there, a fact which I called out. The rest came and looked over my shoulder, and the next thing was the sight of Mrs. H descending the stairs again, this time in person. Thinking we must have been mistaken, we asked her whether she had been down before. She answered in the negative.
That would be no.
Some time before this occurrence, I was away for the weekend, and during my absence, another thing happened.
Ooh, another thing?
Another thing.
Loves things.
This is getting to my comment last episode of, hey, look, if you meet an asshole, you have a bad day. If all you meet is assholes, you might be the problem.
Or the ghost.
Oh. It was on the Sunday morning about 10:30. Ellen had gone to Mass, and Maggie was washing up in the kitchen. The family and the animals were in the breakfast room at the breakfast time.
We're going to have to move past this.
Suddenly they all heard Maggie, as they thought, run violently up the back stairs, across the landing, open the door, and bang it behind her. Remembering that she had intended to give her an order, my mother started to go and call out to her. However, something claimed her attention, and it was several minutes before she was free to go. At the foot of the stairs, something prompted her to go and look into the kitchen. She did so. What was her astonishment to see Maggie there calmly washing up. Maggie, for her part, looked nearly as astonished, and her eyes grew round. They both exclaimed simultaneously, "Why, Maggie, I thought you went upstairs just now." This time, they did go upstairs and searched in every corner, but there wasn't a soul to be seen. And certainly no stranger could have got in without their knowing it. Couldn't they? Though this house seems huge.
I feel like Maggie just wanted a break. Like, oh, you thought someone went upstairs? I'm doing dishes? I'll go upstairs.
Yes. You want to take over here for a bit? In a general way, it was a very cheerful house to stay in, but now and again it seemed to acquire a gloomy atmosphere. Sometimes for months at a stretch, I would sleep in my haunted room and never even think about ghosts. Not even when I would be waked up in the early morning by footsteps running violently down the back stairs.
Did she say her haunted room?
Yes.
Okay.
Because at least once there's been a black lady haunting it, I think. But the whole house seems haunted. Everything's haunted. This woman is haunted.
I'm only haunted by the ghosts of my past.
Yeah. Whereas she's haunted by ghosts of other people's pasts.
But
But, on the other hand, sometimes the house would be unbearable. The very air in it had an evil feeling. For a few nights I used to be stiff with terror, and I could feel that my room was full of something nasty.
woe is me.
Puberty?
Oh, I was thinking more like, I'm so unfortunate in this large house with this lavish lifestyle, all these beautiful clothes.
Yeah. Servants to do everything
for me.
A cat and a dog.
Woe is me. The evil spirits are out to get me, I'm sure.
I mean, you just get so rich and comfortable you start getting paranoid, I guess.
Yeah, you probably get really bored without having to do all those chores that people usually have to do for themselves, right?
Yeah. Instead they just start writing excessively long ghost stories into people from the paper.
And refer to themselves as unlucky.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think she has done that. I'm putting those words in her mouth.
I tell you, it's a tragedy when my private jet is haunted, Callum.
Okay, Taylor. Once or twice, people were waked up by a rap at the door. The rapper being always invited in by them, but never accepting the invitation.
I know when Snoop Dogg comes to my door.
No, I saw that coming.
You know you gotta let that brother in, right?
Several times a child was heard crying in the house. Never by the family, curiously enough, though our banshee is a crying child, but always by some visitor or stranger.
Oh, is that a that's not a banshee, is it? A banshee is just like an evil yelling spirit. It's not a crying child, is it?
Okay, so there is a whole chapter of this book about banshees too.
Oh, okay.
I haven't read it yet though.
Right, okay, sure.
But I think it's more of like more of an omen.
Yeah.
Like it like the banshee haunts the family in general for they cry during bad luck times and stuff.
Yeah. I never imagined a banshee as being like a screaming child. I thought it was similar to how a thumb is like a finger, but not all fingers are thumbs.
Okay, sure. Yes. All crying children are banshees, but not all banshees are crying children.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll pay that.
I mean, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying.
Next time my niece cries, I'm going to call her a banshee and see how that goes over.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice logical thing to do, Callum. Let me know how that goes.
One night, when someone was ill, the coachman slept in the house, and he asked Maggie in the morning if there was a child staying in the house, as he had heard crying upstairs in the night. He was greatly perturbed when Maggie said, "No." Full stop. This same Maggie had a young man, a postman.
Yeah, she did.
Whom she subsequently married.
But yeah, he came a couple of times in the night.
Oh, Olly.
I meant over to the house.
I can't not pay that.
I meant over to the house.
Yeah,
came over to the house.
Yeah.
Ooh, I got it. What if it was the postman that was like coming into the house to see Maggie, and then when Dotty came along just to see what Maggie was up to, she asked him to like run up the stairs.
Yes, he's been caught in the house where he shouldn't be.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly, right?
Oh, you've got it.
And then, he's had to like hide in a cupboard or something. But then when they've gone upstairs to look for the guy, okay, bear in mind Maggie already knows that Dotty's pretty paranoid. So, like, Dotty...
Yes.
So Maggie thinks that, you know...
She thinks that her cousin is psychic, so, you know.
Well, I mean, yeah. So Maggie's like, oh, you know, the mistress of the house is pretty cray-cray anyway, so it's okay to tell her it's a ghost. Right? So he's running up the stairs, like, hides in the cupboard, and they've worked this out beforehand. So she's like, oh, look, if you get caught in the house, run upstairs, go into this closet.
Yes,
hide in
never
there,
look in there.
And then Maggie will run up with her, and she'll be like, oh, I checked this room. I checked all the closets. No one there.
Yeah, and Maggie's always the one there saying as well, like, oh, I heard something. Like, yeah. Okay.
I've caught it. I've solved it.
You've got it.
It's the postman.
What about the child feet, though?
Oh, no, I told you before. That is a dead child.
Okay, right.
I'm going to die on this hill.
All right. I feel like we just swapped positions there for one glorious minute.
Look, I'm open-minded to there was the postman. I'm just saying in that particular instance, it was a dead child. The ghost of a child.
Yeah.
That sounds better than what I said.
One night, he was seeing her home about 9:30 or so. As they neared the big gates into the yard, he noticed a man leaning against them. He was going to make some remark about it when he observed that, though apparently looking at the man, she did not seem to see him, nor did she make any remark. All right, did that make sense to you?
Not really.
All right, so there's Maggie and the postman walking down the lane.
Yep.
The postman sees a man leaning against a gate.
Yep.
But Maggie doesn't seem to see the man who's leaning against a gate.
Sure.
Right. That's where we're at.
So Maggie sees a person?
No, the postman sees a person. Maggie does not.
Oh,
And she doesn't seem capable of seeing him, I think, is the idea.
Sure. And this is a story that she tells Dotty later, is it?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I hope it continues.
Continuing the ruse of the fact that there's ghosts out in the world.
Yeah.
Dotty, you'll never guess. I saw another... Well, the postman saw another ghost. So many ghosts around.
I know. Do you think, who's the other maid? Ellen, I think, right? Like, I hope she's got a fella too.
I mean, I could only but assume that they would cover for each other. They seem like they've got that kind of bond.
Yes, absolutely. He said nothing about it until the next day. And then he asked her whether she had seen anything. He had guessed rightly. She had not.
So let me paint you a picture. You've woken up the next day. You've had a long walk outside with your partner.
Yep.
You've woken up in the morning. Maybe you're in the process of having breakfast. You've had
the breakfast room.
Yeah, and then you
of
think,
your own house.
Sure. Yeah. And then you think about the fact that you may have seen a single person at a single point in a long walk the night before.
Yeah.
And you recall this.
And you mention it to your partner.
And they can't remember the specific instance of seeing this person leaning against like a tree or a post or whatever it is at a certain point on this walk the night before.
Correct.
Right. That's reasonable. They should, right? You should totally expect them to remember that. How dare they not recall some portion of that walk the night before?
Yeah, I think at least one of them had other things on their mind.
And I'm sure they couldn't have been distracted by the walk, the area, the fact that everyone drank back then.
I love it.
I'm speculating of a potential, let's say, conspiracy in the staff to be able to have people over without the owners of the house knowing about that, which I feel like must have gone on at the time. God knows if I was them, I'd be trying to figure that stuff out.
Ah, I see. Hang on. Yes. Right. I thought that the postman was walking Maggie back to Maggie's home, like away from the manor. But it's the other way around. They are walking back to the manor. So Maggie does in fact live in the big rich house as a servant.
Oh, she would. She'd have to, yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense.
I'm pretty sure
the haunting doesn't, but that does.
Sure. No, I'm pretty sure that's how that would work.
Yeah.
They would be live-in staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought for one brief moment there that they weren't and that she had her own place, but nah, that's not to be. Oh, it was a weird house. I have sat upstairs in my room and listened to one of the family walk upstairs slowly, rattling a bunch of keys in his pocket, and gone out to speak to him, only to find he wasn't there. 2 seconds later, I heard him strolling across the hall, and when I called out, he assured me he had not been upstairs for some hours. So I think it's an echoey house. Just it sounds like people are places that they're not.
That would be echoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are correct, sir.
Yeah. Some people couldn't bear the house. Other people loved it. My youngest brother could not stand it for more than a few days at a time. He said it depressed him horribly, and the atmosphere almost hit him in the face. The end, finally.
You know, I think, and this could be a very controversial theory, but I do think that if you were ultra rich, and you literally, if you had nothing to do with your time, like you're so wealthy that you don't need to do a job.
Yeah, you're a lady of leisure.
I mean, it's funny that there's a lot of wealthy people in the world that have the means to not work, but they continue to work because they're passionate about their field or profession.
Yes, I think if we've learned anything from the story today, it's that, yes, rich people should keep themselves occupied and still contribute to a society.
But I do think that if you were incredibly wealthy and you had nothing to do with your time and you had all of that free time in your hands, I feel like you could go insane. You know, like you have to do something. Like boredom, yeah, like boredom's such an incredible.
I must not
force.
boredom. Boredom is the mind killer. Boredom is.
Where's that from?
It's Dune.
Oh, okay.
Fear.
Yeah.
I must not fear. Fear is the
Right,
mind killer.
you went to see
Fear is
the
little
second
death.
movie the other day, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Was it good? Don't tell me. I'm going to watch it. But was it good?
All right. It's very, very clearly the middle film.
Okay.
It's absolutely gorgeous. It's incredibly well made, and yet nothing really happens.
I'm feeling a 6. Is that?
Yeah. Let's call it 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
That's good vibe for it. Got a good vibe from that look in your face.
10 for visuals, a 1 for the fact that you get 2 hours in and go, is anything happening yet?
To be fair, I think I got like 4 or 5 chapters through the book, and I was like,
yeah.
And I've put that down for quite some time. I feel like I should pick that up again at some point, but it's like, it's a commitment. It's a commitment that I didn't commit to.
Nah, that's fair. Speaking of commitments, what would you like to commit to next time? Stories about schools or stories about castles? Knowing we're absolutely going to do them both at some point.
Both good options. I'm thinking the school.
Schools?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to nearly headless Nick roaming through the corridors. In my mind, the school is like Hogwarts. And you're going to have to tell me the story to change my mind.
Next time on Second-Hand Haunting.